Hey everyone, hope you're all doing very well. So today we're going to look at another trap, and this time we're going to look at the Lasker trap. And this appears in an opening called the Albin counter gambit. And this is where white plays d4, black plays d5, and after c4, black plays e5 and gambits a pawn. So we'll take a look. So as I say, d4, d5, c4, e5, and this is known as the Albin counter gambit. The point is now black is giving up this black pawn once white takes it. So usually white's best move is to accept the gambit with pawn takes e5, and to get into the Lasker trap, as black now will play the main move, which is d4. Now if you want to really learn the Albin counter gambit, typically here actually white plays this move, knight to f3, and black plays knight to c6. So if you want to have a look at some games, there's some top level GMs who actually play this system, and the point is basically black wants to move their knight to e7, to g6, and they'll pick up the pawn on e5 at a later date. It's a very tricky system, and it actually has gained some popularity recently. So as I say though, after white plays d takes e5, to get into the Lasker trap though, we'll play d4. And the trap actually starts with white playing the move e3, which is actually a really bad move, a very weak move. And as black now will play bishop to b4, which is check. Now there's two ways to block here. I mean, white could move the king to e2 as well, but that's absolutely terrible. And obviously knight c3 is off the cards because then pawn will take it. So the two moves are, one is knight to d2. If white plays this, black gets just a really good game here with pawn takes e3, and after pawn recaptures, black can play queen h4 with check, and after g3, black can play this queen e4. The point is the knight on d2 is pinned, the queen's now attacking the rook, so white has to block, and after this, black can calmly now play this move, knight c6. We can take the pawn on e3 at any point, the bishop's coming to g4, and the knight can take on e5 if it so wishes. The point is this knight c6 move just allows white to make a mistake. And it just puts a lot of pressure on their position. So this is perfectly playable as black, and black actually has got a really good position here. So after this bishop b4 check, the main move is actually bishop to d2. However, this still is terrible for white. The point now is we'll play a bishop sacrifice, pawn takes e3, allowing white to take on b4. And what happens now if white accepts it? Well, bishop takes b4 can be played, and white's just won a free piece. But black has this nice move now, pawn takes f2 with check. And as we see now, the queens are opened up, the queen's attacking white's queen. So if white takes on f2, black just wins the queen. Queen takes d1. So after pawn takes f2 with check, the king for white is forced to go king to e2. And now black comes up with a very clever move. We play pawn takes knight, and instead of getting a queen, we actually take and get a knight with check instead. And the point is, if white takes this off, rook takes g1, we have bishop g4 check, and we'll pick up the queen on d1 once the king moves, let's say to f2, bishop takes queen. So after we get a knight with check, the king is actually forced to go to e1 to protect the queen from black's queen. But now, amazingly, we have a knight on the first rank, and now black should continue with queen to h4 with check. If g3 here, we'll have queen e4 with check. After king to f2, black wins their piece back, or wins an extra rook I should say. Queen takes h1 with a superb position. So after queen h4, the king is forced to move once again, let's say king to d2 this time, the only move. And now knight to c6 should be played. And we're attacking the bishop on b4, queen d4 is a big threat as well. So it makes sense for white to play this move, bishop to c3. But if this happens, black plays bishop to g4. And after bishop to e2, castles queenside with check. And yeah, black's won the queen finally, and that is actually the Lasker trap. A very aggressive opening, and certainly one where white wasn't expecting that when they played the move 1-2 d4. So let's have a look at it again. So d4 d5, c4 e5, takes d4, and it was this move again, e3. So if e3, we'll check, the bishop goes to d2, and we'll take and sacrifice our bishop. Now actually, white doesn't have to take the bishop on b4. Most players actually play f takes e3 here. If this happens though, the point is queen h4 can now be played, as we've seen in other variations, with check. And if g3, there's queen to e4 attacking the rook, and it can get a bit complicated here, so let's have a look at knight to f3. Let's see if white blocks this queen. Well, if this happens, black's got these sneaky moves, just queen takes e3 with check. Again, the bishop on d2 is still pinned, so they can't take the queen. After white blocks, black can just sacrifice, trade everything. Queen takes e2, bishop takes e2, bishop takes d2, knight takes, and then just knight c6. And let's say castles, knight g7. It's equal material, but black's probably got a better position. Ideas are knight g6 will take the e pawn off, and basically the point is white's c4 pawn and e5 pawn are incredibly isolated and very weak. So black's got a very good position at the opening here. Again, after this bishop to b4 and bishop to d2 and pawn takes e3 again, if let's say f takes e3 again and queen h4 check and g3, queen to e4, white could also play queen to f3 here, but then black should just play bishop takes d2, knight takes, and queen takes e5. And again, white's got these two isolated pawns, and black should have a much better position. Black's even attacking b2 in this variation as well. Once more from this position, after d takes e3, white's got a sneaky move actually, queen to a4 here with check, trying to pick up the bishop this way. If this happens, you should just play knight to c6. And this is still good for black, because after bishop takes b4, we can still play e takes f2. And after king takes, again we have this move, just queen to h4 with check. In this variation, black is actually a piece down, but as we'll see, black gains enough compensation. There's g3, queen to d4 with check, and if king g2 here, there's queen takes b2, winning the rook. So king e1 is forced. Just play queen to e4 with check, king f2, and we'll pick up the other rook instead. So there's no way for white to get out of that without succumbing to some damage anyway. So the last move I want to look at is actually after d4, d5. Again, we get into the Lasker trap, and we'll play, after e3, we'll play bishop to b4. There's bishop to d2. We'll take, bishop takes b4, and then pawn takes with check. King e2, we'll get a knight again with check. King is forced to go to e1. There's queen h4, king to d2. And after knight to c6, there's other moves white can play in this particular position, but none of them are that good. I think the best is queen e1. But if this happens, you've got a nice mating net here with queen to d4 check. And the king is rather exposed, so if king c2, you can just develop with bishop to f5, and if king to b3, just use your initiative here and try and checkmate the white king. So a5 looks really good. Let's say bishop to d2, queen b6, king to a3, and moves like knight to d4. So just get your pieces into the game, and knight c2 is on the cards here. Also, queen c5 looks really strong as well. So that was the Lasker trap in the Albin counter gambit. A very good opening if you want to learn it. It's really good for bullet or blitz, to be honest. It's probably not that good for classical positions because your opponent's got time to think, and not many people will fall into this this Lasker trap. But it's definitely worth knowing if you're going to play it in speed events. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do drop me a like, comment, or subscribe to the channel. It really helps me a lot, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video.